In this video, we'll solve this word problem by using Simplex Tableau. First, let's translate the words into mathematical statements. Okay, first, it tells us the component A requires 2 hours of fabrication and 1 hour of assembly, whereas the component B requires 3 hours of fabrications and 1 hour of assembly. And we have a component C requires 2 hours of fabrication and 2 hours of assembly. The company has a maximum 950 labor hours fabrication time and 750 assembly time. You know the profit on component ABC is $7, $8, $10. We want to maximize the profit. So here we will say that we make X1 component A, X2 component B, and X3 component C. So out of this column, we can make one inequality, that is 2x1 plus 3x2 plus 2x3. This should be less than or equal to 950. That's the total hour of fabrication, or it should be less than 950. Out of this column, we can make another inequality, which is x1 plus 1x2 plus 2x3. This is the total hours of assembly. That should be less than or equal to 750. We want to maximize the expression that P, which is the profit, equals $7 for each component A, plus $8 for each component B, plus $10 for each component C. We're going to find the maximum P and when we'll have the maximum P. To turn this system into a Simplex Tableau, we will add the variable, the select variable S1 and S2 for each inequality. So for the variables, we have x1, x2, x3, s1, s2, and a p. This is an augmented matrix. All right, so the first row is 2, 3, 2, S1 is 1, 0, 0, 950. And the second row is 1, 1, 2, 0. Here we add S2. 1, 0, 750. And the last line is -7, -8, -10, 0, 0, 1, 0. We can tell the basic variables are S1 and S2 and P here, and the non-basic variables are X1 and X2. First, let's find the first pivot element. Of all the indicators here, we have 5 indicators here. The most negative indicator is this -10. So the column that -10 is in will be our pivot column. One of the 2's above the line will be the pivot element. How do we decide? We'll make the comparison by finding the quotient 950 divided by 2 and 750 divided by 2. So 750 divided by 2 is a smaller value. So the 2 in the second row is the pivot element. That makes the second row the pivot row. That means our x3 is the entering variable, and S2 will be the exiting variable. That means after a round of pivot operations, we will turn x3 into basic variable and s2 into a non-basic variable. Okay, let's do the pivot operation by turning the second two into 1 and the other two elements in that column into 0. So first turning the second two into 1. We will multiply 1/2 to row 2 to make it the new row 2. So that will give us, so row 1 doesn't change. Let me write row 1 again. Row 3 doesn't change. And row 2 will be multiplied to 1/2. So 1/2, 1/2, 1, 0, 1/2, 0. And 750 divided by 2 is 375. Now let's turn the other two elements in that pivot column into 0. So I will multiply R2 by -2 and add it to R1, make it the new R1, and multiply R2 by 10 and add it to R3 to make the new R3. This will give me, well, R2 doesn't change at all. We're not doing any row operations on R2, so that stays the same. For R1, it becomes, so -1 times 1/2 is, -2 times 1/2 is -1 plus 2, that's 1. 2 here, and 0 here, -2, 1 times 0 is 1. -2 times 1/2 is -1 plus 2, 0, that's -1. 0 here, and -2 times 375 is 750. -750 added to 950, that's 200. Now let's change the R3. R2 times 10. I'm going to make a cheat sheet here. R2 times 10, that will be 5, 10. Let me change the color to make it less confusing. And 0, 5, 0, 3,750. So I'm going to add this to R3. So that will give me -2, -3, 0, 0, 5, 1, and 3,750. So now we turned x3 into a basic variable. This is p and this is still s1. Let's check the indicators again. We have -2, -3, 0, 0, 5 as indicators, and we still have two negative indicators here, and we want to change them into positive. So changing from the most negative indicator, which is this -3, so that will be our new pivot column. To decide which row will give us the pivot row, we'll do the operation 200 divided by 2, which is 100, comparing with 375 divided by 1/2, which is 750. Well, 100 is a smaller positive number, so the pivot is this 2 here. So we will have to turn this 2 into 1, and this 1/2 into 0, and -3 into 0. as our new round of pivot operations. First, turning the pivot element into 1. So R1 will be multiplied by 1/2. Make it the new R1. So we have 1/2, 1, 0, 1/2, negative 1/2, 0, 100. Okay. And the second row and the third row does not change. So now we want to turn these two elements into 0. So what I'm going to do is multiply R1 first by negative 1/2 and add it to R2 to make the new R2. That's how I change R2 to 0. And then for R3, I will multiply R1 by 3 and add it to R3 to make the new R3. So since we haven't changed anything to R1, R1 stays the same. Okay, I will make a cheat sheet here. This is R2, this is R3, and I'm going to write negative 1/2 R1 over here. So that will be negative 1/4, negative 1/2, 0, negative 1/4, positive 1/4, 0, and negative 50. Okay, I'm going to add negative 1/2 R1 to R2. That will give me 1/4, 0, 1, negative 1/4, 3/4, 0, and 325. That's our new R2. And I'm going to write 3 times R1 over here. So that will have 3/2, 3, 0, 3/2, negative 3/2, 0, 300. So adding 3 times R1 to R3, I have negative 1/2, 0, 0, 3/2. So 5 is 10/2 minus 3/2, so 7/2. 1 and 4050. So now the basic variables are x2, x3, and also p. Since we still have a negative indicator, we will do another round of pivot operations. So this is our new pivot column because the indicator in that column is negative. To find the pivot element out of 1/2 and 1/4 above the line, we'll have to do the operation of 100 divided by 1/2, which is 200. And you have 325 divided by 1/4. I'm not sure what that is. It's definitely greater than 200. So that means the first row is our pivot row. So the 1/2 is our new pivot element. Okay, so that means we're going to turn the 1/2 into 1 and the other two elements in that column into 0. Okay, so first let's turn the pivot element into 1 by multiplying R1 by 2 and make it the new R1. So that will give me 1, 2, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 200. This time I will do the operations together. I'm going to multiply R1 by -1/2 and add it to R2 to make it the new R2. So negative 1/2 R1 plus R2 will give us 0 here, and negative 1/2, 0, negative 1/2, 1, 0, and 275. Okay, now for R3, we're going to multiply the R1, well, we will just add R1 to R3 so that the last element in the pivot column is 0. So it will give us 0 here, 1, 0, 2, 3, 1, and 4,150. Now that we do not have any negative indicators, we're done here. The basic variables we have here are x1 and a tiny calculation mistake here. This is a 1, not 0. x3 and p. And the rest variables are the non-basic variables, which means they have the value of 0. They are x2 and s1 and s2. Those are the non-basic variables. So we do have a maximum p-value. That is 4,150 coming from here. Since x2 is the non-basic variable, the value of that is 0. 0 here. And x1 and x3 are non-basic variables. Okay, we can set the basic variables into 0, kind of like this. So we have x1 equals to 200, and x3 equals 275. And that is the solution. So this means the company should manufacture 200 component A and 0 component B and 275 component C to make the maximum profit. And at this time, the maximum profit is $4,150. This is a long problem. Hopefully this is helpful, and see you in the next video.